What is up, guys? This is the Week 4 preview for the Browns versus the Ravens. Yes, for Browns fans, it's Ravens week. For Ravens fans, it's the division opener at home. This game has been circled on both teams' calendars. Both teams have been chomping at the bit about each other, and both teams are eager to play each other after splitting their series last year. Now, what questions do these teams face coming into this game? Well, for the Browns, it's going to be all about Baker Mayfield, and will he be able to bounce back after a rough start after 3 weeks? The Baltimore Ravens, while having a very talented but injured secondary, have been one of the worst secondaries actually in the NFL through 3 games, which is significant because sure, one of those games were against the Chiefs, which the Chiefs are going to make a lot of teams look bad, but the other 2 were against the Dolphins and the Arizona Cardinals, teams that necessarily you don't get a pass for looking bad for. So for the Browns, it's going to be paramount to be able to take advantage of that attack. And for that to happen, one Sir Baker Mayfield is going to have to play to his abilities, which he has not yet so far throughout the season. The second question, again, for the quarterback is for Lamar Jackson, because this will be by far Lamar Jackson's toughest test yet. No defense he has played is on the same level as the Cleveland Browns. No team he's played has had the same level of secondary as the Cleveland Browns, and no team he's played has had the level of front 7 players that the Cleveland Browns had. So this will be a huge, huge test for Lamar Jackson. So what does that say about who will win, and how does this game break down? Well, we'll get into that right after this. All right, you guys, you know how we do things here. The first thing we're going to do is break this game down into key matchups. The first key matchup is going to be the Ravens run game versus the Browns front 7. A lot of what the Ravens are able to do is based off of their run game. If you can slow their run game down or jump ahead enough to where they cannot rely on their run game enough like Kansas City did last week, then you have a significantly better chance at slowing down the Ravens offense. Lamar Jackson is a much better passer than he was last year, but that still doesn't mean that he is not limited in a lot of ways. While I wouldn't consider him an inaccurate passer, I would say that he is a very streaky passer. He will go on strings where he just can't come close to completing a ball. He will go on strings where he can drop dimes. This is just the nature of who Lamar is as a passer. So that is something that the Browns could definitely take advantage of. Also, this might be the first front 7 that is equipped to slow down the Ravens' very difficult rushing attack. They have the pieces in the front 4, and they have a lot of athletic linebackers in that linebacking core, including, of course, Mack Wilson and Joe Schobert. The second matchup will be the Ravens' lackluster pass rush versus a struggling Browns offensive line. So far, the Ravens, I think, have gotten 7 sacks as a team. To put that in perspective, Myles Garrett has 6 sacks as a person. So not great numbers for the Ravens there. And they just haven't been able to create a pass rush. I mean, they don't have the depth at that position either. So what that means for the Browns is that they finally have a pass rush in which they can contain a little bit. Now, the Ravens are very strong in the interior of this defensive line, don't get me wrong, but I don't think the interior of the Browns offensive line is the problem at all. We have Pro Bowler Joe Bitonio, J.C. Treader, who is very solid, and then Eric Kush, who has been pretty good throughout the year. The problem with the Browns has been the pressure on the edges. And if the Ravens can't create pressure on the edges against the Browns offensive line, that means that Baker's going to have more time to throw the ball, more time to let things develop, and it's going to make a huge difference in how crisp this offense is going to be able to look, as it hasn't looked crisp at all in the first 3 weeks. The third matchup is going to be the Browns wide receivers, who are extremely talented, but they have not really produced like you would think they have. And then these Ravens secondary, who came into this season as one of the best secondaries in the NFL, in my opinion, but injuries and other things have derailed them so far to the point to where they're ranked 27th in the NFL right now as far as pass yards allowed. Now, this will be an interesting matchup because you have 2 struggling units who are very talented going up against each other. Odell Beckham Jarvis Landry, especially Odell Beckham. That's a guy who has been able to kill the Ravens on big plays. And that's the type of guy that the Ravens have had an issue slowing down so far in the season. So Odell Beckham being able to produce, being able to get the big play is going to be huge for the Browns' success this week. And the fourth matchup, I think one of the most important ones that doesn't get talked about a lot is the Browns' defense versus the Ravens on third down. The Ravens are quietly one of the best teams on third down, like of all time right now. Lamar Jackson is an absolute beast on third down from any situation. Right now, I'll tell you his numbers on third down. He is 18 of 23, 78% completion percentage. That's crazy. With an average of 12.4 yards on third down. The Browns got to slow that down. If Lamar Jackson is able to convert on third down, and those are passing numbers, those aren't rushing numbers, which we know he is able to escape the pocket a lot and get third down that way. If the Browns aren't able to slow down Lamar Jackson on third down and finish these drives off, these 3-and-outs off, then the Browns are going to be in a huge hole. They're going to be in a big trouble on the road. So that is going to be a key factor into the game, slowing down this Ravens offense on third down. All right, let's jump into the injury report. We have Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams, two starting corners who did not play last week. Looks like they may not play again, maybe Greedy Williams, but I think Denzel Ward is a definite no-go. The Browns also have Chris Hubbard, who they're going to need back because, again, to take advantage of the lackluster pass rush of the Ravens, it would be great to have your starting right tackle in there. But who knows? He was in a walking boot all week last week. This week, he did practice a little bit, but he is kind of a game-time decision. There's Morgan Burnett, who is the same story as Denzel and Greedy Williams. But luckily for the Browns, Demarius Randall does come back. We have Rashard Higgins, who was practicing, has been practicing on a limited basis for a while now, but just recently got a DNP. So don't even know what the whole situation is for Rashard. And then on the Ravens side, Jimmy Smith, who's going to be out for a while, Braden Trawick. And the interesting one is Mark Andrews. And if Mark Andrews does not play, that is going to be an absolute huge game-changing factor if he's not able to get on the field. But I'll get into that later. All right, so let's jump into some of the biggest weaknesses and problems for each team. For the Ravens, they have three things that I can key in on. One, lack of pass rush. Two, Lamar can still be exploited as a passer by a smart defense. And three, the Ravens secondary has struggled to stop big plays again. You would think switching from Eric Weddle to Earl Thomas would solve those issues, but right now that has not come into fruition, which it could with Earl Thomas. He is one of the greatest safeties to ever play the game, so I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to play at an Earl Thomas level for another couple of years. And I don't want to sit here and be too hard on the Ravens secondary because I don't think the secondary is the issue as much as the lack of pass rush is. The Ravens just haven't been able to get there as much as they have in past seasons. I think they're really missing the production, the consistent production that Terrell Suggs would give them. And I think the defense overall is missing the leadership from Eric Weddle and CJ Mosley because a lot of the problems in the secondary, it seems like it's communication with the Ravens, which is fixable. But, you know, when you're not getting a pass rush, when you're not communicating as well, it's going to lead to big plays happening, getting beat over top. And we'll see if they have those issues handled by this week. But just like the Browns' issues on offense, I don't think these are things that are just going to be solved just like that. These are issues that are going to take time throughout the year. And speaking of the Browns' issues, let's jump into them. The lack of success in rhythm in the passing game. In order for the Browns to win this game, they gotta look drastically better than they did against the Rams. Baker Mayfield did take some steps in that game. He did look more comfortable against zone coverage. He did start to see the middle of the field better, but he did not see it good enough to win the game. The Browns are going to need Baker Mayfield to strap it up and have his first big boy Baker performance of the year in order to beat the Ravens, because the game plan to beat the Ravens, I'm sorry for all those Nick Chubb lovers. I'm a Nick Chubb lover myself, but the game plan here can't be run the ball 25 times with Nick Chubb. The Ravens are way too good at stopping the run to run Nick Chubb that much. If you run Nick Chubb that much, you're going to end up with 25 carries with maybe 60 yards, and you're going to waste a lot of time, and you're going to have a lot of 3-and-outs. The Browns, to win this game, are going to have to air it out. Baker's going to have to drop back and do his thing and throw the ball a ton. I know it's popular, run Chubb, run Chubb. Chubb's really good. He's underappreciated. I understand that. But the Browns want to win this game. They have to attack where the Ravens' weaknesses are on this defense, and the Ravens' weakness is their pass defending, which is a shock to say, but that is the truth right now so far in the season. And if the Browns want to win this game, then you're going to have a big contribution from one Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry. That is what it's going to be. Now, if I'm wrong, I'll take my lumps, make a meme of me, do as you wish. I'll be wrong, and I'll be gladly wrong, because that means the Browns won, and I don't care how it happens. I'll just be happy that the Browns won. But I'm pretty sure that you're not going to beat the Ravens this week running the ball with Chubb. You got to get the ball in the air. You got to get the ball in Jarvis's hands. You got to get the ball in Odell Beckham's hands. I want to see Odell Beckham get over 6 receptions, over 100 yards. That's how you beat the Ravens this week if you're the Browns. Now, speaking of how you're going to beat a team, let's jump into win criteria. Ravens, you're going to want to dominate the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Now, this is obvious, but for the Ravens, dominating the line of scrimmage has not been something they have been able to do. They have not been able to get to a lot of quarterbacks and get a lot of sacks and slow them down in that way. And then on the other side of the ball, they're going to want to be able to run the ball on this stout Browns defensive line, which has slowed down some pretty formidable rushing attacks so far in the season. Le'Veon Bell and Todd Gurley so far. So if you're the Ravens, I would be worried about, if you can't get this run game going, what kind of position you're going to leave Lamar in this game. The second piece of win criteria for the Ravens is going to be limit the big play. You're going to want to keep Baker Mayfield. If the Ravens want to win this game, they're going to have to keep Baker Mayfield under 250 yards. You got to keep him under that number if you're a Ravens fan, because that means that he's not hitting a lot of big plays, that he's not getting a ton of yards on chunk plays, and that you've started to contain. And obviously, if you keep Baker Mayfield under 250 yards, that also means got to keep Nick Chubb out the game, because if he does go off, it ain't going to take a lot of yards for Baker to win this game. The third thing is going to be Lamar needs to win from the pocket. This week, I think for the Ravens, it's going to come down to Lamar in the pocket. How can he win from the pocket? I think the Browns are going to give him one, because they're not going to really be too aggressive, because they know that they can get killed on screen plays or option runs that way, because that's been a common thread of teams. They've been faking out the Browns defense so far. So I think they're going to play a little conservative here and allow Lamar Jackson to play from the pocket. If Lamar Jackson can stay over 65% completion percentage throughout this game, I think the Ravens have a really great chance of winning this game. Now let's jump to the Browns, and the Browns win criteria is going to be similar, but they're going to want to make big plays, and they're going to want to jump ahead early. Kansas City last week made big plays, jumped ahead early, and if it weren't for 2 miracle throws by Lamar Jackson that got caught miraculously, then the Ravens never get back into that game. So if you're the Browns, that's what you want to do. You want to jump out ahead. You want to stop the run, and you want to force Lamar to have to play you from the pocket. And if you lose that way, that's the way you chose to lose. You're going to have to stop Lamar on third down. He's one of the most dangerous quarterbacks on third down, through the air and on the ground. He is the most dangerous third down option. He's the most sure third down option from any distance in the NFL at the quarterback position. So if you're the Browns, you got to slow him down. You got to keep Lamar Jackson under a 50% conversion rate on third down. If you don't, you're going to get killed. They're going to move the ball down, and they're going to rack up points by field goals or touchdowns by running the ball, and they're going to wear your defense down and win this game. So if you're the Browns, got to keep Lamar under 50% on third down conversions, or else they're going to take control of this game. So what is my win-loss prediction after all of that analysis? I think this is going to be one of the hardest fought games this week. I think this is going to be a very physical game. Now, the Browns have to prove that they learned something from their game with the Tennessee Titans, because when the Tennessee Titans brought that physicality, the Browns got real undisciplined and committed a lot of penalties and got real wrapped up into that. The Ravens are going to try to do the same thing to the Browns. This is going to be a test of their maturity if they're able to keep the dumb mistakes down and play sound, fundamental football and not get wrapped up in all the stuff, because I promise you, the Ravens are going to be coming out here chippy, pushing the Browns around, trying to provoke them in the first division game at home for them. They've been talking about all the hype that they've had to hear. John Harbaugh, I think, has done a brilliant job of slowly and sneakily, dipping a little salt in everybody's coffee about the Browns. He's gone around the facility and told all his players how great the Browns are on paper, and he doesn't know if he can compete with them. It's classic Bill Cowher stuff that John Harbaugh's doing. If you know anything about Bill Cowher's motivational tactics, it's very similar to what John Harbaugh's doing. Very, very brilliant stuff. I can't even hate on it. So they're going to come out with something to prove, with the chip on their shoulder, and they're going to be very physical. This is also going to be a test for Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield. Lamar Jackson is going to face his toughest test yet. If he does not play well against the Browns, if he does not throw the ball well against the Browns, a lot of his detractors, who I think go way too hard on him, are going to point out the fact that the Browns are probably the best defense he has played and that he has not played a real defense, even though I think the Chiefs are a better defense than most people give him credit for this season. For Baker Mayfield, it goes both ways, because if you're not able to take advantage of this Ravens secondary that is struggling up to this point, the voices are going to be louder. The noise from the outside is going to be louder. The criticism is going to be louder, because there should be no excuse for Baker Mayfield to take advantage of the secondary. Either way, the media storylines coming out of this game, no matter what the result is, are going to be ridiculous and are going to be hyperbolic and are going to be things that we as real fans who are watching this content, because, should probably ignore. But nonetheless, their storyline. So let me cut to the chase. Who do I think is going to win this game? I got to say, since it's a road game, since it's at M&T Bank Stadium, I think the Ravens edge this out. I think the Ravens are going to win 30-27. But if Mark Andrews is not healthy, I think that's a big factor. I think that's a 3-point swing, actually. And I think that's enough to change the tides to a Browns win 30-27. Now, again, Mark Andrews plays. I don't like the Browns' chances as much, but if Mark Andrews doesn't, I like the Browns' chances a lot more because of the matchup problems that Mark Andrews would give this Browns secondary that is pretty stretched to this point. But that's my opinion on the game. That's what I think is going to happen. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think the Browns are going to pull this one out, shock everybody, and shut up some people this week? Or do you think the Ravens are going to do what they do and win this game? Because John Harbaugh does have a great record against the Browns, especially at home. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you're a Ravens fan, let me know what you think is going to happen in this game as well. That is it for this preview of this Week 4 matchup. If you like what I do and you like how I do things on this channel, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and ding that notification bell so you can be notified when I upload. And if you want to help this show out, please consider donating $1 or $2 a month to my Patreon or buying a shirt. Either way is greatly appreciated. But that is it for this week's show. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great day.